The Mafia boss's son hasn't spoken in years, until he said my name. Thunder cracked so hard the windows shook. Jessica dropped the tray in her hands. Metal hit marble. Somewhere down the dark hallway, a child screamed. Not a playful scream. A terrified one. She froze. One of the older housemaids had warned her an hour ago. Whatever happens at night, do not leave the west corridor. But the scream came again. Help! A little boy's voice. Jessica's chest tightened. Rain slammed against the giant windows of the mountain estate as the lights flickered once, twice. Then the whole mansion went black. Someone shouted downstairs. Guards moved. Footsteps rushed. Jessica whispered, "Oh God." Then she ran toward the cry. Bare feet against cold marble. Lightning flashed through long corridor windows, showing paintings staring down at her like ghosts. Another cry, this time weaker. She turned the corner and saw him. A small boy curled beside a locked red door, trembling.
Seo Jun.
The silent son. The child everyone in the house spoke about in whispers. Jessica had only arrived that day for temporary cleaning work. She wasn't supposed to even be near him, but there he was clutching his knees, breathing fast. "Hey," she said softly, kneeling. "It's okay." The boy flinched, his eyes wide with fear. Another thunderclap shook the estate. He grabbed her wrist. Hard. Jessica's heart nearly stopped. The child who spoke to no one was holding on to her. "It's okay," she whispered. His small fingers shook. Without thinking, Jessica began humming the old lullaby her mother used to sing in Lagos when storms frightened her.
Low, warm,
gentle. The melody rapped through darkness. The boy slowly lifted his face. His breathing eased. Jessica brushed wet hair from his forehead. "You're safe." Then, footsteps thundered. Flashlights blinded the hall. Armed guards. Voices. And behind them, he appeared. Min Jun. Black shirt. Tattoo curling up his neck. Rain on his shoulders. Eyes cold enough to freeze fire. Even in chaos, he looked terrifyingly calm. His gaze moved from his son to Jessica's hand holding the boy's. Silence. One guard barked, "Step away from him," but Seo Jun gripped her tighter. Wouldn't let go. Min Jun's expression shifted almost invisibly. "What were you doing?" His voice cut like steel. Jessica stood. He was scared. No one spoke to Min Jun like that. Not in this house. One guard looked ready to drag her away. But Min Jun only stared. Then at his son. Then something impossible happened. Seo Jun pointed at Jessica. His lips trembled. The room held its breath. And the boy whispered, "Jessica." A tray crashed behind somebody. A maid gasped. One guard crossed himself. Jessica felt the blood leave her body. Min Jun didn't move. Didn't blink. His son had not spoken in 5 years. Yet the first word spoken was her name. And Min Jun asked, low and dangerous, "Who taught you that song?" Jessica could barely breathe. "My mother." Something changed in his face. Something old. Something haunted. Then he turned. "Everyone out." The guards obeyed instantly. Jessica stood frozen. Seo Jun still holding her hand. Min Jun stepped closer. Too close. His presence swallowed the hallway. "Come with me." It wasn't a request. By morning the mansion looked as if nothing had happened. But everyone stared at Jessica. Servants whispered. The woman in the kitchen refused to meet her eyes. Even the guards watched her differently. Jessica sat in a study larger than any home she'd ever known, trying not to panic. She was supposed to clean floors for 1 week, not be summoned by a mafia king. The door opened. Min Jun entered. No bodyguards. Just him. He leaned against the desk. "You sang to him?" "Yes." He spoke. Jessica swallowed. "Yes." His eyes narrowed. "What exactly did you do?"
She almost laughed.
Comforted a frightened child. His jaw flexed. For a moment, he looked less like a feared crime boss and more like a desperate father. Then he asked quietly, Do you know how many doctors failed him? Jessica said nothing. Min Jun stepped closer. He hasn't spoken since his mother died. The room grew heavy. Jessica looked down. I'm sorry. Min Jun studied her. Then, I want you to stay. She blinked. What? As Seo Jun's companion. Jessica nearly laughed. I'm a cleaner. You are now whatever my son needs. She shook her head.
No.
I came for temporary work. I'm not qualified. His voice lowered. He asked for you this morning. Her breath caught.
He asked.
Min Jun nodded. He refused breakfast until he saw you. Silence. Jessica thought of rent overdue.
Bills.
Money she sent home. Life constantly one step from collapse. How much does it pay? A shadow of amusement touched Min Jun's mouth. Enough to make her stomach flip. He named a number. Jessica stared. It was more than she made in months. This is crazy. Is that a no? Jessica looked at him. At the tattoo. At those unreadable eyes. At danger written all over him. And still, she heard herself say, I'll stay. The first week passed strangely. Seo Jun spoke no more words, but followed Jessica everywhere, like a shadow. If she read, he sat beside her. If she watered plants, he copied her. When she laughed, he watched as though learning what joy looked like. One afternoon, she taught him a clapping game from childhood. He smiled.
Small. Rare.
But real. And something in Jessica's heart softened. She forgot this was supposed to be temporary. Forgot she was inside a house guarded by men carrying guns. Forgot Min Jun often watched silently from doorways. Then came the drawings. Seo Jun handed her one after lunch. Crayon sketch. A woman in white. A red gate. Flames. Jessica frowned. What is this? Seo Jun only pointed. Then drew another. Same strange symbol at the corner. Jessica froze. A symbol carved into the pendant around her neck. She touched it.
Cold.
Impossible. How do you know this? Seo Jun only stared. That night, Jessica couldn't sleep. At midnight, she heard voices outside her door. Servants whispering. She should leave. He chose her. That's why she's in danger. Jessica opened the door. The hallway was empty. Her skin prickled. The next day, Min Jun found her in the garden. You look unsettled. Jessica held up the drawing. Where did he get this? He drew it. Min Jun took the paper. Silent. Then said, Do not ask about that symbol. Jessica crossed her arms. That makes me want to ask more. For the first time, he smiled. Dangerously handsome. Brief.
Gone.
You should fear your curiosity. Jessica stepped closer. Do you? Min Jun looked down at her as wind moved her hair. Something electric passed. Then a child's voice behind them. Jessica. Both turned. Seo Jun stood there. Jessica's breath caught. Second word. He had spoken again. Min Jun's face went still. Seo Jun ran to Jessica and hugged her waist.
Tight.
As if claiming her. Min Jun watched. Not like a boss. Like a man witnessing a miracle. Later that night, Jessica tucked Seo Jun into bed. He handed her another drawing. This one made her blood run cold. A car on fire. A little boy inside. And a man with blood on his hands. Seo Jun.
His finger tapped the man.
Then he whispered, Bad. Jessica stared. This wasn't imagination. This was memory. The boy had seen something. And, before she could process it, someone moved outside the bedroom door. Jessica swung it open. A shadow disappeared down the hall. Her pulse exploded. Someone was listening. At dinner, tension thickened. Long table. Too much silence. Jessica finally asked, Who died in that fire? A fork dropped. Guards looked down. Min Jun's voice turned glacial. Who told you there was a fire? Seo Jun drew it. Min Jun stood. Chair scraping.
Done eating.
But before leaving, he leaned near her ear. Close enough, she felt his breath. Some truths get people killed. Then he walked away. Jessica sat frozen, heart racing for reasons she didn't want to examine. That night thunder returned. Jessica woke to soft knocks. Opened her door. Seo Jun stood there holding a pillow.
Scared.
She brought him inside. As he drifted to sleep beside her, he suddenly murmured, "Mama lied." Jessica jolted.
What?
His eyes stayed shut, sleep-talking, but she heard it.
Clear as day.
Mama lied. What did it mean? And why did dread settle in her bones? Downstairs, unknown to Jessica, Min-jun stood before security monitors, watching footage, watching Jessica carry Seo Jun. One advisor beside him whispered, "She's becoming a risk." Min-jun's eyes never left the screen.
No.
A dangerous pause. She may be the answer. Morning came. Jessica opened her door. A black envelope lay on the floor. No name. Inside, a photograph.
Old.
Faded. Of a young African woman, holding a little girl. Jessica's knees weakened. It was her mother. And her. On the back. One sentence written in Korean. She didn't understand it. But when Min-jun appeared behind her and saw the photo, for the first time, the feared Mafia boss looked shaken. "What is this?" Jessica whispered. He took a long breath, then said, "Someone in this house knows who you are." Jessica looked up. "What does that mean?" Before he could answer, a gunshot echoed from somewhere inside the estate. Servants screamed. Guards ran. Min-jun grabbed Jessica's wrist. "Stay behind me." And in that moment, she realized whatever she had stepped into was far darker than a child finding his voice. And someone had just declared war. If this story has pulled you in so far, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Why do you think Seo Jun spoke Jessica's name? Because what happens next changes everything. The gunshot echoed again. Closer this time. Jessica flinched as Min-jun pulled her behind him and moved with frightening speed through the corridor. Guards flooded the mansion, weapons drawn, shouting into radios. "Seal the East Wing. No one leaves." Jessica's pulse pounded in her ears.
Seo Jun.
She yanked free. The boy. She turned to run upstairs, but Min-jun caught her wrist. "Jessica." My God, Seo Jun is alone. She tore away and ran. By the time she reached the child's room, her lungs burned. The door was open, curtains blowing in cold wind. Bed empty. For one horrifying second her heart stopped, then small arms wrapped around her waist.
Seo Jun.
Hiding behind the door.
Alive.
Jessica dropped to her knees and held him so tightly he squeaked. "It's okay. I've got you." His tiny fingers clutched her shirt. Min-jun appeared in the doorway, breath controlled, eyes scanning everything. One look at his son in Jessica's arms, and the steel in his face cracked. Just for a second. A guard rushed in. "Boss, one of the men in the east corridor is dead." Jessica looked up. "Dead?" Min-jun's expression shut cold again. "Take Seo Jun to the library," he said. Jessica stood. "You're not telling me what's happening."
No.
His tone ended it. Jessica stared. "Someone shot a man in your house, and you expect me to just carry on?" Min-jun stepped close. So close she felt the danger around him like heat. "I expect you to keep my son safe." Then he turned and disappeared into chaos. Hours later the mansion looked calm again.
Too calm.
Jessica sat beside Seo Jun in the library while he drew silently. Rain tapped the windows. Fire crackled, but unease crawled under her skin. She couldn't stop hearing the gunshot. Couldn't stop seeing the old photograph. And she definitely couldn't stop thinking about Min-jun's face when he saw it. Seo Jun slid a paper into her lap. Another drawing. 3 people. A child. A woman. And a tall man standing apart. The man had a dragon at his neck. Jessica stared. "You drew your father." Seo Jun nodded, then pointed at the woman. "Jessica." Her throat tightened. He had drawn her beside them, as family. She forced a smile. "You're making me soft, little man." The boy leaned against her. For the first time since arriving in Seoul, Jessica felt wanted, needed, and that frightened her. That night, she couldn't sleep. She went to the kitchen for water and found Minjun alone at the long dining table, sleeves rolled up, a cut bleeding along his knuckles. She froze. He looked up. "Can't sleep?" She glanced at his hand. "You're hurt." "It's nothing." Jessica walked over anyway. Without asking, she grabbed a cloth and sat opposite him. He watched her in silence as she cleaned the blood. His skin was warm,
Hard. Dangerously distracting.
she muttered. "You bleed like ordinary people after all." A corner of his mouth moved. "You're bold." "You're impossible." He actually smiled. A real one. Jessica almost forgot to breathe. Then she asked quietly, "Who was killed tonight?" His face darkened. "One of my men." "By who?" He studied her. "Why do you keep pushing doors marked dangerous?" "Because every time I stop asking questions, someone whispers I'm in danger." Silence. Then Minjun leaned back. "You want truth?" "Yes." "The man shot tonight was not loyal." Jessica frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means betrayal has entered my house." A chill went through her. Then he said something softer. "Which means you need protection." Jessica laughed nervously. "You say that like I'm staying long enough to need it." Minjun's gaze held hers. "You're not leaving." It wasn't possessive. It sounded like certainty. Her heart stumbled. To escape the moment, she asked, "Why did you recognize my mother's song?" He went still. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Years ago, a woman saved my life." Jessica blinked. "What woman?" He looked into the fire. "A woman who sang that song." Her breath caught. "My mother?" He didn't answer directly, but silence said enough. Jessica whispered, "That's impossible. Nothing in my life has been ordinary." She stared. The room felt smaller.
Charged.
Then he said quietly, "You should go to bed." Because if she stayed longer, something neither of them was ready for might happen. Days passed, but tension grew. Jessica noticed one of the guards always watching her. A scarred man. Too interested. Seo Jun grew more attached. Spoke fragments now. Words. Broken pieces. "Jessica. Stay. Don't go." Each word felt like treasure. One afternoon they played hide-and-seek in the garden. Jessica counted against a tree. 10, 9, 8. She opened her eyes. Seo Jun was gone. At first she smiled.
Cute.
Then she searched. No answer. Her smile faded. "Seo Jun." Nothing. Panic rose. She ran through hedges, called louder, then heard a cry. She found him near the koi pond, the scarred guard gripping the boy's arm too hard. Jessica exploded. "Let him go." The man looked annoyed. "Back away." She marched forward. "I said let him go." He sneered. "You forget where you are." Before Jessica could answer, a voice sliced through the garden. "Take your hand off my son, Minjun."
Deadly calm.
The guard released Seo Jun instantly. Jessica rushed the boy behind her. Minjun approached the man slowly. Terrifyingly slowly. "What were you doing?" The guard stammered. "Just helping the child." Minjun punched him so hard he dropped. Jessica gasped. Seo Jun clung to her. Minjun looked at his men. "Remove him." The man begged. "Boss, please." Dragged away.
Gone.
Jessica stared at Minjun. What was that? His jaw flexed. He touched what is mine. Jessica's breath caught. Did he mean his son?
Or, no.
Don't think that. But his eyes lingered too long. And she felt it. That dangerous pull. That night Seo Jun brought Jessica to the locked red door from the blackout. He pointed. Insisted. She shouldn't. But curiosity won. The door was unlocked. Inside.
Dust.
Old nursery. Abandoned. and walls covered with children's drawings. Hundreds. Jessica moved slowly, then froze. One drawing showed a burning car. Another showed a man pushing it. Another showed that same symbol. Everywhere. Her pendant symbol. She whispered, "What is this place?" Behind her, Seo Jun finally spoke clearer than ever. "Mom room." Jessica turned sharply. "His mother's room." Then the boy pointed to a box beneath the bed. Jessica opened it. Inside, letters, a photograph, and a woman in white. Seo Jun's mother. Beautiful. But Jessica's blood turned cold, because around her neck, the same pendant. Impossible.
No.
Impossible. Her hands shook. Footsteps. Jessica spun. Minjun stood in the doorway. Fury. How did you get in here? Seo Jun hid behind Jessica. She lifted the pendant. Why does your dead wife have this? Silence. Violent silence. Then Minjun said, "Leave the room."
No.
Jessica. No. Emotion cracked out. "You keep saying trust you while hiding everything." Minjun stepped forward.
His voice low, raw.
"Because if you know everything," he swallowed, "you may never forgive me." Jessica stared. Forgive him? For what? Then, Seo Jun whispered behind her, "Uncle Bad." Both adults froze. Jessica slowly turned. "What did you say?" The boy trembled, eyes filling. "Uncle hurt Mama." The room spun. Jessica looked at Minjun. Minjun looked like a man struck by lightning. Someone close. Family. Killed Seo Jun's mother? And the child remembered. That's why he'd gone silent. Not madness. Not brokenness. Witness. Before anyone could speak, alarms blared through the mansion. Red lights flashed. Guards shouting. Minjun swore. Then grabbed Jessica's hand. "We move.
Now."
They ran. But as they reached the corridor, Jessica glanced back and saw a shadow inside the nursery, watching them. Someone heard everything. Someone who knew the boy remembered. And that meant Seo Jun was in mortal danger. If you're still watching, drop in the comments right now. Do you trust Minjun, or do you think he's hiding something darker? Like this video, subscribe if you're hooked, because in the next part, Seo Jun disappears. The alarms didn't stop. They screamed through the mansion like something alive. Red lights pulsed across the walls as Minjun pulled Jessica through a hidden corridor behind the library shelves. Seo Jun clutched her hand so tightly his fingers hurt. Guards ran past them shouting orders. Lock all exits. Search the West Wing. There's an intruder inside the estate. Jessica's breath came fast. Minjun, what's happening? He didn't slow down. Someone is inside who shouldn't be. That's not an answer. He glanced at her once. Cold. Focused. Stay close. That was all. They burst into a secure room beneath the mansion. Steel doors sealed behind them. Only then did Seo Jun finally relax slightly, still pressed against Jessica. Minjun turned to a wall of monitors. Security feeds flickered. Empty corridors. Moving guards. Then, a blind spot. One camera feed frozen. Minjun's eyes sharpened. Show me the east corridor.
Static.
Then nothing. He swore under his breath. Jessica stepped forward. That's where the nursery is. His jaw tightened. And for the first time, something in his control slipped. Stay here. He moved toward the door. Jessica grabbed his arm.
No.
Not again. You go out there, and we sit here doing nothing. His eyes locked on hers. Dangerous. You think this is your world, Jessica? Her voice shook, but didn't break. I think a child is upstairs, and I'm not sitting in a bunker while people with guns run around him. Silence. Seo Jun tugged her sleeve.
Softly.
Don't go. Jessica looked down at him. Her anger softened instantly. Then she looked back at Minjun. I'm coming with you.
No.
Yes. A stare held between them. Something unspoken. Finally, Minjun exhaled sharply. You do exactly what I say. Jessica nodded once. They moved fast. Upstairs, chaos had increased. Guards shouting. Doors being forced open. Jessica spotted broken glass near the hallway leading to Seo Jun's room. Her stomach dropped. Seo Jun. She broke into a run. Jessica. Minjun followed instantly. They reached the room. Empty. Curtains moving. Window open. Jessica froze. No. She rushed inside. Seo Jun? No answer. Her voice cracked. Seo Jun. Silence. Minjun scanned immediately. Exit points. Footprints on the balcony. Then he saw it. A single small shoe near the window. Jessica's knees almost gave out. He's gone. Her voice was hollow. Minjun's expression didn't change. But something inside him did. Cold control turned into something sharper. Violent. He grabbed a guard passing by. Find him. The guard nodded and ran. Jessica stood shaking. He was right here. Her hands trembled. I left him for 1 second. Minjun turned to her. You didn't do this. She snapped. Then who did? A long pause. Then, quietly, the man who shot in my house earlier was not alone. Jessica's eyes widened. You think this is connected? I know it is. She looked at him. Then where is he? Minjun didn't answer immediately. Then, somewhere he was taken on purpose. Jessica felt sick. Why him? Minjun's eyes darkened. Because he saw something he should not have seen. Her voice dropped. His mother's death. Minjun didn't deny it. That silence confirmed everything. Jessica stepped back. You still haven't told me the truth. A beat. Then, Minjun said. I told you enough to understand one thing.
What?
He is not safe anywhere in this house. Jessica shook her head. That's your house. His eyes hardened slightly. And yet someone inside it tried to kill him. Silence hit like a wall. Then Jessica whispered. Who else knows he remembered? Minjun's expression changed. Slowly. Almost imperceptibly. Only people who were there that night. Jessica understood immediately. A traitor wasn't just possible.
It was already inside.
Downstairs, chaos intensified. Guards dragged in a man struggling. The scarred guard. The same one who had grabbed Seo Jun earlier. Jessica saw him and moved forward. Minjun stopped her. Not yet. But she couldn't hold it in. That man touched him. Minjun looked at her. I know. They entered a control room. The scarred guard was forced to his knees. Blood on his lip. Minjun stood in front of him. Where is the boy? The man laughed bitterly. I don't know. Minjun crouched slightly. You touched him. I was checking him. Jessica stepped forward. Checking him for what? The man's eyes flicked to her. Then away. Minjun noticed. You're nervous. The guard swallowed. I don't know what you mean. Minjun grabbed him by the collar. Wrong answer. The man cracked. Okay. Silence. Everyone froze. Then, they took him to the east exit. Jessica's heart jumped. Minjun narrowed his eyes. Who took him? The man hesitated too long. Minjun hit him once.
Clean.
Controlled. The guard gasped. Please. Name. The man spat blood. Someone from inside. Jessica felt ice in her veins. Minjun stood slowly. Who? The guard whispered one name. Jessica didn't recognize it. But Minjun did. Because his entire face changed. For the first time.
Fear.
Jessica stepped closer. Who is it? Minjun didn't answer. Instead, he turned to his men. Lock down the entire estate. Yes, boss. He grabbed his coat. Jessica blocked him.
No.
You're not going alone. His eyes sharpened. This is not your fight. It became my fight when your son grabbed my hand and said my name. A long silence. Then Minjun said quietly, If you come, you do exactly what I say. Jessica nodded. Fine. He studied her for a second, then turned. Let's move. They drove through the estate's underground tunnel.
Dark. Fast.
Jessica sat beside him in the SUV, Seo Jun's empty seat behind them feeling like a wound. Her voice broke the silence. Why does everyone react to that symbol on my pendant? Min-jun didn't look at her. Because it belongs to something that should not exist anymore. That's not an answer. It is the only one you will get right now. Jessica clenched her fists. Min-jun. He finally looked at her, and for the first time, his voice softened slightly. If I tell you everything, you may not survive knowing it. Jessica stared at him. I already feel like I'm inside something dangerous. You are. A beat. Then, because of me. Silence hit harder than noise. Jessica turned away slightly. Then why bring me here at all? Min-jun didn't answer immediately. Then, because my son chose you. That landed differently. He wasn't speaking like a boss. He was speaking like a man who didn't understand why fate had chosen her. They reached the east exit. Burnt tire marks on the ground. Open gate. Empty road. Jessica stepped out immediately. Seo Jun. No answer. Wind moved through the trees. Min-jun scanned the area. Then froze. Jessica saw it too. A small piece of paper on the ground. She picked it up.
Drawing.
Seo Jun's handwriting. But messier. Shaken. A stick figure child. A man holding him. And a single word written underneath. Uncle. Jessica looked at Min-jun. Who is Uncle? Min-jun didn't answer. His silence was heavy. Then,
a phone rang.
One of his men answered. Face draining of color. He handed the phone to Min-jun. Min-jun listened. His expression darkened completely. He ended the call slowly. Jessica stepped closer.
What?
He looked at her. And for the first time, he said it clearly. They didn't take him far. A pause. They took him home. Jessica frowned. Home. Min-jun's voice dropped. To where his mother died. Jessica felt the ground shift beneath her. No. Min-jun turned. And for the first time since this began, he looked like a man preparing for war. We are running out of time. Jessica grabbed his arm. If you know where he is, then go. He looked at her and said something that made her blood run cold. I think he was taken so he could finish what he started. Jessica's voice shook. What does that mean? Min-jun didn't answer. Instead he said, because Seo Jun didn't just witness his mother's death. A pause. He remembers who did it. Silence. Then, Jessica whispered. And he spoke. Min-jun nodded once. Yes. And somewhere in the distance, a child screamed. If this story is gripping you so far, like, subscribe, and comment right now. Who do you think took Seo Jun and why? Because in the next segment, Jessica learns the truth about the night Seo Jun's voice disappeared forever. The scream didn't come again. That was the worst part. Silence stretched over the forest road like something had swallowed the sound itself. Jessica stood frozen beside the SUV, her pulse hammering so hard she could barely hear Min-jun speaking on the phone with his men. He was taken to the old residence, confirm the perimeter. No one enters without my order. He ended the call and turned immediately. We move. Jessica grabbed his arm.
No.
You just said old residence. What is that place? Min-jun didn't answer fast enough. That delay was an answer. Her stomach tightened. Min-jun. His jaw flexed. It's where my wife died. Jessica went still. Seo Jun's mother. The woman in the photograph. The woman connected to the symbol on her pendant. Jessica's voice dropped. And you're telling me my son is there? Min-jun corrected instantly. Not your son. A pause. Then softer. My son. That landed heavier than it should have. Jessica looked away for a second, breathing hard.
No.
We don't go in blind. If that place is connected to a murder and a child kidnapping. Min-jun stepped closer. There is no time for strategy. Jessica shook her head. There's always time for strategy when someone's life is at stake. His eyes locked on hers. Then you are learning my world too slowly. A beat of silence. Then Jessica said something quieter. If Seo Jun dies, none of this matters anyway. That hit differently. Minjun didn't respond immediately. Then, he won't die. No emotion, just certainty. But Jessica noticed something under it. Fear he was trying to bury. They drove in silence. The forest road narrowed until the mansion estate was no longer visible behind them. Only darkness. Rain began again. Soft at first, then heavier. Jessica stared out the window, thoughts spiraling. Seo Jun's drawings. The word uncle. The symbol on her pendant. And the photograph of her and her mother inside this same world she never knew existed. She whispered without looking at him. Why did Seo Jun say my name first? Minjun kept his eyes on the road. I don't know. That was the first honest answer he had given her. She turned slightly. That's not true. Silence. Jessica pressed. You knew I mattered to him before I ever met him. His grip tightened on the wheel. I knew he reacted to the song. That's not enough. It was enough to bring you here. Jessica's voice rose slightly. So you brought me into a Mafia estate full of secrets without telling me why? Minjun finally looked at her and said it simply. Yes. Jessica shook her head in disbelief. That's insane.
No.
His voice dropped. It was necessary. The way he said it made her chest tighten. Not arrogance. Burden. They reached the outskirts of an old gated property. Rusting iron. Broken security lights. The kind of place time had abandoned. Minjun killed the engine. We go on foot. Jessica stepped out immediately. Cold air hit her face. The mansion in the distance looked like it had been swallowed by age.
Dark. Silent. Dead.
Jessica whispered. This place feels wrong. Minjun didn't respond. He handed her a small earpiece. Stay close. Don't separate. Jessica took it. And if I see Seo Jun first? His eyes sharpened. Then you don't move alone. She nodded. But her fear wasn't about rules anymore. It was about what was waiting inside. The front door was already open. That alone made Jessica's skin crawl. Minjun entered first. Jessica followed. Inside, the air was stale. Dust hung in beams of light breaking through cracked windows. Old furniture covered in white sheets. Then, a child's toy on the floor. Jessica froze. A small wooden horse. She bent slightly. Minjun's voice cut in instantly. Don't touch anything. She looked up at him. This is where your wife died. He didn't answer. Instead, he moved deeper inside. Jessica followed. Every step felt heavier. Then they heard it. A faint sound upstairs. Jessica's breath caught. That's him. She started forward. Minjun grabbed her arm. Wait. But she was already pulling away. Seo Jun. She ran up the stairs. Jessica, damn it. Minjun followed immediately. The sound got louder. A soft crying. Then, a child's voice. Jessica. She stopped mid-step. Seo Jun. She ran faster. Seo Jun. I'm here. At the top of the stairs. A hallway stretched long and dim. Doors half open. Wind pushing through broken glass. Then she saw him. Seo Jun standing at the end of the hall.
Alive.
But not alone. Jessica's heart dropped. A man stood behind him.
Tall.
Older.
Calm. Too calm.
His hand rested on Seo Jun's shoulder. Seo Jun wasn't struggling. He was frozen. Jessica whispered, "Let him go." The man smiled faintly. "You shouldn't be here." Minjun stepped into the hallway behind Jessica. The air changed instantly. The man looked up and smiled wider. Well, his eyes moved to Minjun. Minjun. Jessica felt the tension snap instantly. History. Violence. Recognition. Minjun's voice went flat. You're alive. The man tilted his head. For now. Seo Jun suddenly flinched. Jessica. His voice cracked. Jessica took a step forward. It's okay, baby, I'm here. The man tightened his grip slightly, and Seo Jun winced. Jessica stopped instantly. Don't touch him. The man looked at her. You're louder than I expected. Jessica snapped. Who are you? Silence. Then the man said something that made everything freeze. I'm the reason this child stopped speaking. Jessica went still. Minjun's entire posture shifted. Dangerous. Controlled rage. You shouldn't be alive to say that, Minjun said. The man smiled. But I am. A pause. And now he remembers. Jessica looked at Seo Jun. What do you mean remembers? Seo Jun's eyes filled with tears. He whispered, Uncle. Jessica's stomach dropped. The word wasn't confusion anymore. It was recognition. The man nodded slowly. Yes, little one. Seo Jun began shaking. Jessica stepped forward again.
No.
Stop. Don't talk to him. The man ignored her. Instead, he looked at Minjun. You never told her the truth? Minjun's voice was ice. Say what you came to say. The man exhaled. Your son saw everything. Silence. He saw his mother die, and he saw who ordered it. Jessica turned slowly to Minjun. What is he talking about? Minjun didn't answer. That silence was worse than any confession. Jessica's voice broke slightly. Minjun. Seo Jun suddenly spoke clearer than ever. And what he said shattered everything. You did it? Jessica froze. The hallway went dead silent. Seo Jun was looking at Minjun, trembling, eyes full of pain. I saw you. Minjun didn't move, didn't deny, didn't confirm, just stood there. And Jessica felt the world tilt violently. No, she whispered. The man behind Seo Jun smiled quietly. Now he remembers everything. Jessica shook her head. That's not possible. Seo Jun cried harder. You were there, you were there. Minjun's voice finally broke through.
Low. Controlled.
Seo Jun, listen to me. The boy stepped back, terrified. Jessica moved instinctively. Stop. He's a child. But the man tightened his grip again. Seo Jun gasped. Jessica froze. Minjun took one step forward. Let him go. The man shook his head. No. A pause. Because now he decides. Jessica whispered. Decides what? The man leaned slightly towards Seo Jun. Tell him. Seo Jun was shaking violently. Then, he pointed at Minjun. And said it again. But this time, not confused.
Certain.
You killed Mama. Jessica felt like she couldn't breathe. Minjun closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. And when he opened them, Jessica saw something terrifying. Not guilt, not denial, but truth buried too deep to show easily. The man smiled. Now, the question is, he looked at Jessica. What will you do with him? Jessica stepped forward without thinking. Give him back the child. The man tilted his head. And if I don't? Jessica's voice shook. Then I'll make you regret ever touching him. A pause. The man laughed softly. You're not the threat here. Then he looked at Minjun. You are. Silence.
Heavy.
Final. Minjun finally spoke. And what he said changed everything again. Let him go. The man smiled wider.
No.
And in one motion, he dragged Seo Jun backward into the dark room behind him. The door slammed shut, locking. Jessica screamed, Seo Jun. Minjun moved instantly, gun drawn. Jessica grabbed his arm. Don't shoot, he's inside. Minjun didn't hesitate. I'm getting him out. Jessica's voice broke. You better. Minjun looked at her, and for the first time,
his voice softened.
Stay behind me. Then he kicked the door open and stepped into the darkness. And that was the last thing Jessica saw before the lights went out completely. If you're still watching, comment right now. Do you think Min-jun really killed Seo Jun's mother, or is something else going on? Like, subscribe, because in the next segment, the truth about that night finally comes out inside that dark room. The darkness inside the room felt alive. Not empty.
Alive.
Jessica stood at the broken doorway, breathing hard, trying to see anything at all. The emergency lights from the hallway flickered weakly behind her, barely touching the space where Min-jun had just walked in. "Min-jun," she shouted. No answer. Only silence. Then a faint sound. A shuffle. Something moving deeper inside. Jessica stepped forward immediately. A voice in her ear crackled through the earpiece. "Stay outside," one of Min-jun's men ordered. "No," she snapped back without thinking. She ripped the earpiece out. Inside, the air was colder, dust heavier. The room looked like it had been abandoned for years, but something about it didn't feel empty. It felt preserved, like a memory frozen in time. "Seo Jun," she called again. A small voice answered from somewhere inside the darkness. "Jessica." Her chest tightened. "That's me. I'm here." Then another sound. A low laugh. The man from before. "Touching." His voice echoed. "She always runs first." Jessica froze. "Where is he?" she demanded. No answer. Then, a flicker of movement. Min-jun appeared from the side, gun raised, scanning every corner. His face was controlled, but his eyes sharper than before. "Stay close," he said. Jessica didn't hesitate this time. She stayed right behind him. "Is he in here?" she whispered. "Yes." A pause. "And so is the truth." Jessica frowned. "What truth?" But Min-jun didn't answer. He moved deeper. Each step echoed like a warning. Then, they saw him, Seo Jun, standing in the center of the room.
Still. Silent.
But not alone. The man stood behind him, one arm loosely around his shoulders, like he belonged there, like he owned him. Jessica's breath caught. "Let him go," she said instantly. The man didn't look at her. Instead, he looked at Min-jun. "You brought her," he said calmly. "Interesting choice." Min-jun's voice dropped. "You're done here." The man smiled faintly. "Am I?" Seo Jun flinched slightly, at his grip tightening. Jessica took one step forward. "Stop hurting him." The man finally looked at her. "And who are you to order me?" Jessica didn't blink. The only reason he spoke in 5 years. Silence. That landed. Even Min-jun glanced at her for a second. The man tilted his head. "Is that what you think this is?" Jessica's voice shook slightly, but stayed firm. "It's what I know." Seo Jun suddenly whispered. "Jessica." Her heart broke at how small his voice sounded. "I'm here, baby," she said softly. "Don't listen to him." The man chuckled. "Listen to her," he mocked. "The outsider who thinks she understands what happened." Min-jun stepped forward. "Enough." The man's smile faded slightly. Then he leaned closer to Seo Jun. "Tell them again," he whispered. Seo Jun trembled. His lips parted. Jessica shook her head quickly.
"No."
"You don't have to say anything." But the man tightened his hold slightly. And Seo Jun's voice broke. "You were there." Jessica froze. She turned slowly to Min-jun. The air between them shifted instantly. Min-jun didn't move. Didn't speak. Just watched his son. Seo Jun continued, tears forming. "Mother was crying." Jessica's breath hitched. The room felt smaller. He pointed slightly at Min-jun. "And you?" Jessica whispered. "No." Seo Jun's voice cracked harder. "You didn't stop it." Silence shattered everything. Jessica looked at Min-jun fully now. What is he talking about? Min-jun's jaw tightened. For the first time, his voice wasn't sharp. It was heavy. "I wasn't supposed to be there." That didn't help. Jessica's eyes widened. "That's not an answer." The man behind Seo Jun smiled again. "Oh, but it is," he said softly. Jessica turned on him instantly. "Stop talking." He ignored her. Instead, tell her what you did that night, Min-jun. Jessica's stomach dropped. Min-jun's expression darkened. You wanted control, the man continued. You got it, but not the consequences. Jessica looked between them. Someone explain what is happening. Min-jun finally spoke. Jessica stepped back.
No.
His voice sharpened slightly.
Now.
But Jessica didn't move. I'm not moving until I understand why your son thinks you hurt his mother. A pause. A dangerous pause. Then Min-jun said quietly, because I stopped the person who did. Jessica blinked. That doesn't make sense. The man laughed softly. Oh, it does. He leaned closer to Seo Jun. Tell her who ordered it. Seo Jun flinched violently. Jessica stepped forward. No, don't. But it was too late. Seo Jun whispered the words. Broken.
Confused.
Uncle. Jessica froze. The man smiled. There it is. Jessica turned sharply. You again? The man nodded. Yes. Min-jun's voice turned ice cold. You were never supposed to be alive. The man shrugged slightly. And yet here I am. Jessica's head was spinning. What does he mean, uncle? She demanded. Min-jun didn't answer immediately. Then,
Low.
Controlled. He was family. Jessica's heart dropped. Family did this. Silence. That silence answered everything. Jessica stepped back slightly. No. Seo Jun suddenly cried out. You all lied. His voice broke through for the first time with real emotion. Jessica moved instantly toward him. Seo Jun, listen to me. But the man pulled him back slightly. And that's when everything snapped. Min-jun moved.
Fast.
Gun raised. Let him go. The man didn't flinch. You shoot, he falls first. Everything froze. Jessica's breath caught. Min-jun didn't lower the gun. But he didn't fire either. Seo Jun trembled. Stop, he whispered. Jessica saw it then. The fear wasn't just of the man. It was of the memory. Jessica spoke softly. Baby, look at me. Seo Jun's eyes flickered toward her. I'm here. A pause. You are safe with me. The man laughed quietly. Safe. Jessica ignored him. Seo Jun, what do you remember? The boy shook violently. I don't want to. Jessica knelt slightly. You don't have to be scared. But the man interrupted. He already saw it. Jessica snapped her head toward him. What did he see? The man smiled. The truth. Min-jun's voice dropped dangerously. Stop speaking. The man ignored him again. He saw who pulled the trigger. Jessica froze. The words landed like a punch. No, she whispered. Seo Jun suddenly screamed. I saw you. The room went silent. Even a man stopped smiling. Jessica turned slowly to Min-jun. Everything inside her went cold. Min-jun. He didn't respond. Not immediately. And that silence was confirmation enough. Jessica stepped back slowly. You were there. Min-jun finally spoke. His voice quieter than before. Yes. Jessica's breath shook. And you didn't stop it? A pause. Then, I didn't see everything. The man laughed again. That's not what the boy remembers. Seo Jun cried harder. You stood there. Jessica felt like the floor disappeared. No, she whispered again. Min-jun stepped forward slightly. Jessica, listen. But she backed away. Don't. Her voice cracked. Don't tell me to listen right now. Silence. Heavy. Breaking. Then the man said softly. Now you understand why he stopped speaking. Jessica looked at Seo Jun. The boy was shaking uncontrollably, caught between memory and fear. Jessica moved toward him slowly. Seo Jun, look at me.
He did.
Her voice softened. No matter what you saw, I am here. A pause. And I believe you. That landed differently. Seo Jun's breathing slowed slightly. The man frowned. That's not how this ends. Min-jun raised his gun again. It ends now. The man tightened his grip on Seo Jun. Shoot me, and he never speaks again. Jessica snapped. Stop using him. The man looked at her. You're emotional. That's why you don't see it. Jessica's voice shook. See what? He leaned slightly. That Minjun is not the only one who was there that night. Silence. Jessica froze. What? The man smiled faintly. There were 3. Jessica's stomach dropped. Minjun's expression darkened instantly. That's enough. But the man continued anyway. And one of them is still in your house. Jessica turned slowly. What did you just say? Seo Jun whispered again. Uncle. And this time, he wasn't looking at Minjun. He was looking past him. Jessica followed his gaze. Into the dark corner of the room, where someone else was standing. Watching. Waiting. And smiling. If this story has you hooked, like, subscribe, and comment. Who do you think the third person is? Because in the final segment, Jessica learns who really destroyed Seo Jun's mother and why she was brought into this house from the very beginning. The room didn't feel real anymore. It felt like a trap finally snapping shut. Jessica's eyes locked onto the dark corner where Seo Jun was staring. At first there was nothing, just shadow, broken light, dust hanging in the air. Then the shadow moved. A slow step forward. A man emerged, not one of Minjun's guards. Not a stranger. Someone Jessica had seen before. The scarred guard. The one who had touched Seo Jun earlier in the garden. The one who had been removed. Jessica's breath caught. You, she whispered. The man smiled faintly. Surprised? Minjun's entire body shifted instantly. What are you doing here? The guard tilted his head. I was never removed. Silence hit like a shockwave. Seo Jun backed away, trembling violently. Uncle, he whispered again, but now it wasn't confusion. It was fear. Real fear. Jessica stepped forward slightly, blocking Seo Jun instinctively. You kidnapped him, she said sharply. The man laughed softly. I retrieved him. Jessica's voice cracked. Retrieved? The man looked at her. You still don't understand where you are. Minjun raised his gun immediately. Move away from the child. The guard didn't flinch. Instead, he looked at Minjun calmly. You won't shoot me. Minjun's eyes narrowed. Try me. The man smiled. Because if I die, he loses the only truth he has left. Seo Jun shook his head violently. You're lying. The guard looked at him gently.
No, Seo Jun.
That tone, soft, almost fatherly, made Jessica's stomach turn. You saw what you saw, the man continued. But you were a child. You misunderstood it. Jessica snapped. What did he misunderstand? Silence. Then the man said quietly, the night your mother died, there were 4 people in that room. Jessica froze. Minjun didn't move. Seo Jun started crying again. No, the guard continued. Minjun arrived too late. Jessica looked at Minjun instantly. His jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. The man nodded slowly. He tried to stop it. Jessica's breath caught. So, he didn't kill her? Silence again. He didn't answer immediately. That hesitation was louder than words. Jessica turned slightly. Minjun, his voice was low. I didn't kill her. The guard laughed softly. But you didn't save her either. The air changed again. Seo Jun covered his ears. I don't want this. Jessica knelt immediately. Hey, look at me. She grabbed his small hands gently. You're safe. Breathe. But her own voice was shaking now, because everything was collapsing. The guard stepped forward. Let me show you what really happened. Minjun snapped.
No.
But the man continued anyway. You want truth, Jessica? You walked into this house because you were never random. Jessica froze. What are you talking about? The man reached into his coat and pulled out a photograph.
Old.
Faded. He held it up. Jessica's breath stopped. It was her mother. Young. Standing beside a man in a suit. A Korean man. Jun. Jessica's knees weakened. No. The guard nodded. She saved him once. In Africa. Years ago. Jessica looked at Jun. You said that already. I didn't tell you everything, Jun said quietly. The guard interrupted. Because she didn't just save him. He looked directly at Jessica. She saved this entire bloodline. Silence. Jessica couldn't process it. Seo Jun whispered softly. Jessica. She turned to him instantly. I'm here. The guard stepped closer. And when she died, she left a message. Jessica's heart pounded. What message? The man smiled faintly. You. Jessica went still. Me? He nodded. She named you. Jessica shook her head. That's impossible. Jun finally spoke again, voice controlled but heavy. It is not. Jessica turned slowly. You knew my mother? Jun hesitated. Yes. Her voice cracked. And you never told me? I didn't know who you were until Seo Jun spoke your name. Jessica felt like she couldn't breathe. This is insane. The guard laughed softly. It's not insane. It's inheritance. Seo Jun suddenly screamed. Stop. Everyone froze. The boy stepped forward, tears streaming. I don't want memories anymore. Jessica moved immediately. Hey, look at me. She crouched, holding his shoulders gently. You don't have to remember anything right now. But the guard shook his head.
No.
He has to. Jun stepped forward instantly. Touch him again, and I end you. The guard smiled faintly. You won't. A pause. Because you still don't know who I am. Jessica stood slowly. Then tell us. Silence. The man looked at Jun. I am the one who cleaned the mess that night. Jessica's stomach dropped. Cleaned? He nodded. I erased evidence. I moved bodies. I made sure the world only saw what it needed to see. Jessica whispered, horrified. You covered it up. The man corrected gently. I preserved order. Jun's voice was ice. You betrayed me. The man tilted his head.
No.
I protected the family. Seo Jun screamed again. You killed Mama. The man finally looked at him. No, Seo Jun. A pause. I saved you. Jessica's heart slammed. What? He stepped closer. If I hadn't removed you from that room when I did, you would have died too. Silence shattered again. Jessica looked at Seo Jun. Removed him? The boy started shaking harder. Jun's voice dropped dangerously. What are you saying? The man exhaled. I took him out before the final shot was fired. Jessica froze. Seo Jun looked up at her, confused, terrified. I don't remember. The man nodded. Because I made sure you didn't. Jessica stepped back slowly. You erased his memory. The man didn't deny it. Jun took one step forward. You altered my son. The guard smiled faintly. I preserved him. Jessica shook her head. This is sick. The man looked at her calmly.
No.
This is survival. Silence. Then Jessica whispered. Why bring me into this? That question hung in the air. The guard looked at her directly. Because you are the key. Jun stiffened slightly. Jessica frowned. What does that mean? The man pointed at her pendant. That symbol you carry is not decoration. Jessica held it instinctively. It's a lock. Silence. And your mother was the only one who knew where the key belonged. Jessica's breath shook. Jun said quietly. She was supposed to return one day. The guard nodded. But she died before she could. Jessica felt her world tilt again. So, I'm just what? Replacement. The man shook his head.
No.
A pause. You are continuation. Seo Jun suddenly whispered again. Jessica. She turned. The boy was staring at her differently now. Not afraid. Not confused. But certain. You stay. Jessica's eyes filled. Baby. He stepped forward and hugged her tightly. And, for the first time, he wasn't shaking. I remember you, he whispered. Jessica froze. What? Seo Jun looked up at her. You were in my dream before I spoke. Silence. The guard's expression shifted slightly. Min Jun stepped closer. What did you say? Seo Jun continued softly. You told me not to be scared. Jessica's heart cracked open. The guard sighed. It's beginning. Min Jun raised his gun again.
No.
This ends now. The man looked at him calmly. You can't end what was already written. Jessica stepped between them instantly. Stop. Both men froze. She looked at Min Jun, then at Seo Jun, then at the guard. Her voice shook. No more secrets. No more half-truths. Silence. Then she said, Tell me everything. The guard nodded slowly, and for the first time, he lowered his weapon, because what came next was the truth behind the night Seo Jun's voice disappeared, and why Jessica was never supposed to be outside the story. Weeks later, the estate was quiet again. Too quiet. Seo Jun sat in the garden, speaking softly for the first time in peace. Jessica stood nearby watching him. Min Jun approached quietly. You're leaving tomorrow. Jessica didn't look at him. Yes. A pause. Unless you stop me. He didn't answer immediately. Then, I won't. Silence. Jessica finally turned. You still don't trust me? Min Jun looked at her for a long moment. I don't trust fate. She almost smiled. That's honest. Seo Jun ran up suddenly and grabbed her hand. Stay. Jessica knelt. I have to go home for a bit. The boy shook his head. Home is here. That hit differently. Jessica looked up at Min Jun. He didn't correct the boy. He just watched. Quiet. Not as a mafia boss, but as a man who had lost too much to argue with truth anymore. Jessica stood slowly. I'll come back, she said softly. Seo Jun smiled. Promise. She hesitated, then nodded. I promise. Min Jun stepped closer. Just slightly. And if you don't. Jessica met his eyes. Then you come find me. A faint pause. Then, for the first time, he smiled without darkness behind it. I would. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Comment. Do you think Jessica should have stayed or left? See you in the next story.